Hi. So today I had my usual work Bible study on Zoom and I was the only one there. No one else turned up. But I studied the passage anyway. That was encouraging. This is Luke chapter 10 verse 5 onwards. And I had a good time learning from this passage until about 15 minutes later my buddy Joel signed on. I thought, let's do the passage together. So we studied the passage together until 15 minutes after that. Another friend signed on. So we did the passage again a third time. But it was great. Really instructive, very encouraging. It's that bit of the Bible where Jesus says, eat anything, drink anything that is put in front of you. That's basically what every Asian mom tells their kid. You are Chinese, not vegan. But it's a reminder to be thankful for God's provision, especially as you're doing God's work. Let me read to you the passage. This is Luke chapter 10 and verse 5 onwards. When you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If a man of peace is there, your peace will rest on him. If not, it will return to you. Verse 7, stay in that house, eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. Do not move around from house to house. And this is good news. This is the best case scenario. If you're doing God's work, you enter this house, you're telling the gospel, and the person says, come on in, eat my food, sleep on my couch. And Jesus says, this is the man of peace who's welcomed you with peace. Eat and drink whatever is put before you. The worker deserves his wages. This is good news for Jehovah's Witness, Jesus' witnesses, doing his mission. He sends out 72 of his workers out to speak the gospel to the various villages around him. And I don't want to go into the controversy about paying pastors. Yes, this verse is quoted. 1 Timothy chapter 5, the elders deserving double honor. Also go to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, how churches should be responsible and generous towards their pastors. Pay them. But this passage though is for the pastor, for the ministry worker, for those who in verse 2 are sent out by the Lord of the harvest, the workers of this Lord of the harvest. The same word is used here. The workers deserve their wages. And he's speaking to the worker, he's speaking to you if you're doing God's work, not to be, number one, too picky, and number two, too paise, too embarrassed, because you deserve this wages. This is God's generosity towards you. But secondly, also not to be too picky. I remember when I once went to this very generous Christian couple's home, Mr. and Mrs. Ho. Sorry, I'm going to tell this story. I've told it so many times, but they don't watch YouTube, so they will never see this. Anyway, I went to this home. Mr. Ho laid out in front of me breakfast. He said, oh, have this, Calvin, have this breakfast. It was this bowl of cereal with milk and cereal and this big mug of this milk drink. I am lactose intolerant, but I had this verse in my mind, now eat whatever, drink or whatever in front of you. And I said, I love you, Jesus. I'm going to obey this command. And so I ate this cereal and I drank this milk drink and I could feel my stomach gurgling up. But I went for it. Mr. Ho was looking at me, good. I said, yep, thank you so much. Don't you want to have some breakfast? Then Mrs. Ho was walking behind him at just that moment going, oh no, Mr. Ho is lactose intolerant. You can't have any of this. Don't be picky. Be honest and be open and say that can't take milk or whatever. When something is put in front of you out of generosity, receive it with thankfulness. Receive it in dependence to God, who is providing for his workers through the generosity of his people. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've had cheesecake, caffeine. One day I went out for 5 one-to-ones. Hey, what do you want to drink? I have whatever you're gonna have. They all had coffee. I had 5 coffees that day. I didn't sleep the whole weekend. Really helped with the sermon the next day. Those were moments where I learned dependence, thankfulness. I learned to see how God is providing for his workers through the generosity of his people. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's too far out there? Do you think this is too extreme? Something that might be helpful for you if you are doing God's work, just to be able to recognize those signs of God's provision, those signs of God's grace through God's generosity through God's people. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Ho. Thank you for that. I love that breakfast.
The climb we did was unreal. You made me so speechless. I just can't believe it.
Do you guys ever have this problem? I can never remember, is it clockwise or anti-clockwise or this way? Not working. Yes. I changed this one as well, but the battery died.